Okay, hello. So, I want to go on a bit of a different rant today. This time I'm going to talk about two-factor authentication and passwords and all that bollocks with online. Because, in particular Skrill have been pretty annoying and having to activate two-factor authentication on top of your already existing strong password. And when passwords, they force you to update them and then they don't allow you to reuse old passwords. These sort of sites are kind of a bit narrow-minded. They think that they are the only site in the world that you use, and that is a bit awkward because when you've got, say, 60 different social accounts, because hey, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these other stuff, on top of any other sites that you might use, like your email, your PayPal, your Skrill, all these other different accounts, you need to have different passwords for everything. And these passwords, they're usually at least 8 digits, and you have to use, say, a capital letter, a figure, a number, and then a bunch of string letters as well, of a long, at least, not just use only one. And then all these passwords need to be unique and different, and they can't be words, because if you use words or anything that's actually meaningful to you, then, hackers are able to use those, so you have to have something unique in all these things. And, the human mind can remember some of these things. Yes, there are browser extensions that can save all your passwords, but no, not everyone uses them, and maybe they're adding all these two-factor authentication things because people are using these password storage things which aren't secure. But then you need to essentially add a different password on top of it, because two-factor authentication, it needs you to add an additional step. Sometimes this will be things like, what is your mother's maiden name? And again, you don't really want to actually use these things in your passwords because people are going to know them, especially for things that you don't really want them to know. And when every single site under the sun is asking these things, you're spreading it a bit thin. So, maybe you'll come up with something else again. So it's like a trick of the trade. So you do something very different to what they're actually asking you, so that people that would know these won't actually know these, because it's not actually the question. But then you need to know, what you've put for that answer as the countersign. So it's like, underscore, underground, where people have things like, I'm trying to think of a good example, like, how was your life on a Tuesday? And then they have a very specific counter speech that they say to you to identify themselves as an operative in that sort of field. So, it's like you're not actually answering the question, you're giving the correct countersign. And essentially you're doing that with the two-factor authentication. Or you can carry your phone with you and, have your phone beep you and it's like, put this in as the stupid thing. That's a bit of a ball ache as well, because you just want to answer your thing and not have to take your phone everywhere. Especially when you've got an old phone, because, I don't have apps and stuff on my phone. Because yes, I know my phone does have a screen on it still that constantly opens itself and rings and sends text when I don't want it to. That's a bit of annoying. But that's also why I don't want to update to a newer phone, because until they've got phones again that have the cases that cover the screen, I like the flip phones and the things that cover the screen so that it didn't constantly ring things in your pockets. Where are those? There's the Matrix phone apparently coming, but again, the screen is still visible, and I bet the screen is still touch it and you can unlock it. And yes, sometimes they got into swipe, sometimes they got into fingerprints, but still, my phone still has a huge swipe zone on it, and still it unlocks itself in my pocket because, it's meaningless. It's not very secure to unlock. It's like, oh yeah, that's plenty to unlock it, but still, somehow it will find its way of unlocking itself and ringing itself. And fingerprints aren't that secure either, because my last job that I had, I worked with fingerprints, and I've worked with fingerprints in the past, and I keep signing in as someone else, so they're not secure, and they're not as unique as you think, and if you rotate them enough and move them about enough, you can do it. And in some fingerprint things as well, apparently you can just put heat on them, and I imagine on the phone, it's not necessarily going to be that particularly good at being a fingerprint scanner, because it's not, specifically designed to be a fingerprint scanner. It will just take a picture, and any picture of your fingerprints, anyone could easily get a picture of your hands. and that will unlock your phone. So, you do need to care on that. And then facial recognition, again, just a picture of your face, and anyone can fucking do that. And if you put on weight or lose weight or change your hairstyle, maybe it won't recognise you anymore. So, I just hate two-factor authentication. I just want to be able to type my password, get into my account, and do all that. Especially when I've got 60 million different passwords, and then when you fucking force me to update it and you don't let me reuse my old passwords, it's like, with enough of these accounts that are in your head, and then you're like, yeah, that's the account for this, and then it's like, well, it isn't anymore because we've forced you to change it because someone hacks our stuff. But no, your stuff definitely wasn't included in that hack. But you're never allowed to use this password again. So, the password that you've got memorised for this site because you've got so many, it's like, and then it just, after a few cycles of that where you've been forced to update your password because you've forgotten it, it becomes blank. You just can't ever remember it. And because if the sites allow you to reuse your old password, sure, you can re-put it to what you know and what you remember. But when they force you to never use this again, then essentially the whole site becomes useless. You can't ever use that site again because they've forced you to never use your passwords, and it's like you can't reuse the password that you've got. And, you're not going to use an insecure password or a password for something else because you're not meant to use the same password for different services and different things. But you're still going to make it ultra secure and all these different things and something that you'll remember, but not something that actually means anything to you and something that you might actually remember. It's just got to be some random string that you are going to remember. But you could have your browser save it and be completely insecure in that way, or have it all written down somewhere, and again, not really that secure because anyone can fucking get access to that, or have it typed on your PC on a file, and any hacker can get access to that and copy your files, and it's like, no. It's just like, no, mate. I don't want to do all this. I don't want to have two-factor authentication. And yes, I've got an old phone, so essentially I'm anonymous. There's a film coming out called Anon, and you can imagine that most people have their phones on them, and modern phones, like, it tracks your position, sends all these information. Me, I kind of got an old phone, so I am essentially going to be anonymous walking about because I'm not carrying things that are connected to all of this bollocks. So I am more anonymous than most people, and it's not out of that, it's just out of the fact that phones are fucking shit at the moment, and I want something that won't fucking unlock in my pocket. Then I might actually consider buying a phone, but for now, it's like, no, it does the job, it does phone calls, it does texts. I got a computer, I can use my computer. I also got a tablet, I can use that to get on that stuff I really, really want. But phone-wise, and I'm not going to carry the fucking tablet everywhere either. It's like, no mate. So yeah, I'm just pissed off with two-factor authentication. It's not necessary, and it's like, oh well, passwords. Everyone's storing all their passwords. So what can we fucking do? Let's give them extra fucking levels of password. What's next? Oh, we'll just have something remember all these two-factor authentications. Then that's perfectly fine. Oh yeah, so because they got that, we'll have to do three-factor authentication. Then you'll be spending 10 fucking years trying to fucking get into your account because it's like, yeah. And then on top of that, some sites, you put remember me, they'll remember you for like 3 or 4 months, and then they'll forget you. And because you haven't been using that password, you'll be like, shit, what was my password again? When it finally fucking tells you that you need to actually use the password because you're not using it so often. It's like, oh my god, what was that password? So, yeah, and in this privacy check about it, everything's going, oh yeah, shit, an updated privacy policy because of Zuckerberg. And it's like, well, did I ever put up the thing with the website that you go to that actually never remembers to fucking do all that shit, and you tell it, no, I don't want to be tracked on this, I don't want you to give me targeted advertisements, it was your broadband choices. And that's what Facebook did use, and a lot of other sites. And like every time you tell it, nah, you can give me adverts, but I don't want targeted adverts because they're all shit. And that you looked at this. Are you sure you don't want to buy this shit that you didn't actually want to buy in the first place? And it's like, yeah, no, I don't want that. I don't want targeted advertisements because you usually target me with shit advertisements, and when you don't target me, they were better advertisements, honestly. And you just made everything so shit these days. So, hey, what can you do, Matt? What can you do? Anyway, I really don't like this webcam. It's like too grainy. Why the fuck is it so grainy? I could go back to my old school fucking camcorders and use the, what's it called, Honest Tech, and it would be less grainy than this shit. What the fuck, mate? What the fuck? Anyway, so yeah, that is what I feel about two-factor authentication, and I don't want to see it spread to everything. It's already on a lot of shit that it shouldn't be involved with. I mean, you know, maybe in your banking apps and all this other shit, you know, banking perhaps, but honestly, for the most part, I find it just a fucking ball ache and unnecessary, and making you update your password is the worst. It's like you've got your password and you've maybe used it for a long time on that specific website. You've got it memorized as that password, and you know it's like second nature to you that is the password to get into that account. And when you're forced to update it and you can't actually ever fucking use it again, it's like oh my god, and just like you want to stop using the site at that point, because it's like you don't want to have to remember yet another new password for that, because you know you might be able to overwrite it, but for the most part, if you've been using it for a long time, it's going to be second nature that your password for that site is blah. Yeah, it's not actually blah. If you're using blah as a password, then you deserve to be hacked. But yeah, it's like, oh my god, and you know, if you've got so many unique passwords, I can imagine most people just put the same password for everything because they just don't care and they can't be bothered. But for me, you know, different passwords for everything. I'm ultra secure. I don't need two-factor authentication. I don't need to be forced to update all these other fucking passwords because you've had some fucking problems, mate. It's like, no, don't make me do it. Why? It's not any more secure. It's like chip and pin, you know. Chip and pin's actually less secure than a signature, mate. You know, I'm just saying. It's like a couple of numbers, yeah, people can hack them, people can see them, people can copy them fairly easily. Your signature is a lot more difficult to copy, mate. So, yeah, anyway. Join us again for some more. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.